Hello, this is a tutorial for the InDesign Project Part 1, the magazine spread. So we're going to create something that looks like this. There's another sample here. So this project is about setting type, also called typesetting, creating paragraph styles using columns, margins, or inserting images. These images have a text wrap applied. We'll also go through how to spell check your copy or all the text, and also talk about placeholder text, which we've used here. So jump over to Moodle. Under the Assessments tab, scroll all the way down. You've got your assessment file if you need to reference that, the example file, which is what I just showed you, and download this resources folder, which you can do here, download folder. So this has got lots of images in it that you can use, as well as the text, the copy that we'll be using. So let's look at our assessment file first. So this will go through all the steps you have to take and all the requirements. So we're going to set up our InDesign document first, and we'll follow these specifications. So new file, it's going to be an A4 page, so go over to print, there's an A4 page here. If your units say picas, change it to millimeters so we can double check that these are the correct measurements. So the width will be 210 mil, height is 297. That gives us a portrait orientation. We're going to put in 2 pages because we're doing a spread, and also tick facing pages because it's a spread. Don't worry about the start number, that's all fine. Whoop, went too far. Columns will be 2, the gutter will be 10, and the margins are 15 mil all the way around. So if you've got that little chain link on, which it should be by default, you just type it in one box and it will fill in the rest with the same measurement. Then for bleed, we're putting in 3 mil bleed, and don't worry about the slug. So let me just double check. So we've got here A4 portrait 210 297, 2 pages, facing pages, 15 mil margins, 2 columns, 10 mil gutter, 3 mil bleed, tick, tick, tick. Great. Let's create. Cool. So you should end up with a file like this. So if you tick on your pages panel, you'll see the 2 pages here. Also, before we start, just set your workspace to typography. So straight away you can see there's 2 pages in the file, but they're not sitting next to each other. And we want them to sit next to each other like a spread. So some people will just add an extra page. You can see that creates a spread here and puts these 2 pages next to each other. But then we have this like a lonely page up here, which we wouldn't be using, and it's a bit confusing to have a blank page in a document. I'm going to undo that. So I'm going to show you another way. Generally, if you try to drag pages around, it won't move it, it just rearranges it. So if I put on here page 1, just so you can tell the difference. And then page 2 on this one. If I try to move or put this page next to it, it doesn't, it just rearranges it. So see if I go to page 1 now, it says page 2. That's because it's just rearranged my page. It hasn't put it next to it. So what we need to do is right click on either of these pages, go to allow document pages to shuffle, and just untick it. So by default it will be ticked. Untick it. Now when you click and drag on page 2, we're going to make it sit next to page 1. You can put it over to the right hand side here, but there's this center line marking. So if I drag it over here, like it's fine. It puts the 2 pages next to each other, but this center line marking is off the left. I don't think this really affects anything, but it makes my brain unhappy for some reason. So I like to drag it up. You've got to make sure see that little black arrow, it goes flick, flick, flick. Make sure it's facing left, and it's not, if you're all the way out here, it won't actually stick it next to each other, it just sort of flips around. So now this is sitting on the left and sitting on the right, but they're still separate. So be careful when you're clicking and dragging, be very slow, make sure you're paying attention. So you get that little black arrow signifying it's going to stick it onto the side of that page. Okay, and then we'll end up with our spread. So in your pages palette it should look like this, and then on your actual artwork it should look like this. So quick recap, we've got our pink and purple lines are the margin and column guidelines. The white box is the page, or like the paper, so the A4 page, and the red line is our bleed line, which is to make our printers happy. So we'll go into that as we create our design. Okay, let's hit save before we start. I always forget this part, but I'm not going to today. So you can name it the proper name. I'm just quickly typing something in. Let's put magazine spread in here. There is a naming convention outlined in the assessment, so gold star for following that. Where is it? It's down here further. It's right at the bottom. It says the naming convention. So if you do that from the beginning, you don't have to worry about it later on, but obviously you can always rename your files later if you like. All right, so we've done step A. Let's go into B, import supplied text. And then we're going to check it for errors using the spell check function. So you can go file, place, and then find your text file here. It's this one, the Women's Weekly Pasta Recipes. And you can import it this way. It'll give you a little preview like normal. I would click it off to the side first. But what I found is because there's page breaks in the Word file, you get this overset text, and if you don't really know what you're looking at or what to expect, this can be confusing. So delete that. We're going to do it a different way. Let's go into Finder, open up the resources folder, open up this Word file, and you'll see here it's got a little blurb at the first page. Scroll down, there's a recipe here for bolognese, and then pesto, and then the carbonara. So because these were on 3, I can show the hidden characters here. Because there's page breaks, when it gets popped into InDesign, it can be a bit confusing. So we're just going to copy and paste it. Turn off those characters now. Copy and paste straight in. So selecting this first blurby bit, copy as Command C, or you can go into Edit, copy, Control C if you're on a PC. Type tool in your toolbar, draw a text box, and then paste that text in. And then we're going to do the same for the next couple of pages, or the rest of the pages. Just select the whole lot. Copy, I'm hitting Command C on my keyboard, draw a nice big text box, paste. I am getting this overset text, the red plus line, but that's fine for now. We're just popping this in quickly. I'm going to go over to this side so there's some space. Copy. Type tool, or you can hit T on your keyboard. There's the shortcut for your type tool. And then last one. Copy. Draw a text box. Command V. Paste that in. Right, so we've got all our text in here. Lovely. So this first part is, I like to duplicate. So I tend to leave anything I've copied and pasted in or imported in, I leave it on the side as it is, so that I can, you always have that to go back to. So if you're working away and you're kind of in the zone and you're just clicking away and you accidentally delete something, you'll have this right here to go back to. I mean, we also have the Word file here, but sometimes when you've got it sitting there, you'll notice it, or you're more likely to notice it. I mean, you can just pop it in. Everyone has different ways of working. I'm just showing you the way I like to work. So if you're not riskier, but like, if you're like, whatever, just chuck it in there, go for it. Okay, so I'm going to click and drag, hold the Alt, or duplicate, and zoom in here. And this first line is going to be our heading. So I'm going to put this in a separate text box so we can deal with it separately. So I'm going to hit Command X to cut, or you can go into Edit, Cut, draw a new text box and paste that in there. And then this bottom line, the source is the website that I got this information from, Command X. I'm going to put that in its own little text box too, because I don't want it to be part of this copy. This will be like a little thing we put in the side somewhere. So for the moment, I'm just going to pop this down here out of the way. And now we can resize this to fit the column guidelines. The heading might go the whole way across, so I'm going to make that text box go the whole width. Let's zoom out a little bit. And if we're going to follow the general example I had, let's follow this one. We're going to put an image right in the top. So I'm going to go back to InDesign. I'm going to leave this space at the top empty and bring this text down here. You can also bring a guideline if you click and drag on the ruler guide. Bring a guideline down to show I'm going to put an image here. And if you want it exactly halfway, you can drag that till it says 148.5. That's half of an A4. Or you can drag that guideline all the way to the bottom, so it should say 297. And then in the top here, you can put /2 and then hit Tab. And that will, you can do like little equations inside these. So if you go, oh, actually I want a couple extra mil, you can go +3. And that will do that in that box. Super handy. Another way to set guidelines, I'm just going to delete that one, is go to Layout, Create Guides. And then you can put in 2 rows, no gutter. This one's to the page. It won't make a difference if it's on the margins or the page. If you do it to the margins, it also puts a guideline. If I hit the margins, you can see here, it puts a guideline on the margin line as well as the center line. But if you do it to the page, it doesn't do that. And then it's done it to both pages because I had both pages selected here. So you can just select one or the other, and then it would only affect those pages. So I'm going to delete that one because we don't need it. All right, so with this body copy, you can see in the example, there's a lot more words, paragraphs in this section. If you zoom in, you'll see it's all gobbledygook. The first part is that blurb that we copied in, picky as eaters, and then it goes after that. This is called placeholder text. A type of placeholder text is lorem ipsum. We can insert a bunch of that into this text box. So I'm going to extend that text box down. I'm also going to make a second text box to sit next to here, but we want it to link together. Once we get these 2 text boxes, we'll chuck in some placeholder text, but I want to set this up first. So you can just use the type tool and draw a second box here, but these aren't threaded, it's called. So if I make this smaller, see how it says overset text? We're going to connect these so that any overset text from here will flow into this text box. So a couple ways to do this. You can hit this little square down the bottom, the same spot as when you have overset text, that same area. You'll see it's got this little preview. And then when you go over this text box, see how it changes to a chain link? And off it just has little lines, but then here it has chain. that means that's linked now. So you'll see if I make this smaller and make it overset, it flows into this text box, which is really important for articles and things where you're using multiple text boxes. You want them to connect, otherwise you'll end up with lost text. Okay, so we're going to fill the rest of this with placeholder text. I'm going to hit return so it goes to a new line. I'm going to type, fill with placeholder text. And because these two boxes are linked, or threaded, I should not say linked, I should say threaded, it fills both of them. Cool, so that's that side. Let's bring in a recipe or two. I'm going to take these two over. So it's up to you how you want to organize these. You could have one recipe on top, one at the bottom, or I think in the example, let's click back. This one we had left and right, they're sitting next to each other, and this one they're sitting above and below. So just for this exercise, I'm going to choose two columns. So I'm making this pesto pasta one sit on the left. I'm going to extend that text box the whole way down, even though the text ends here. When we change the fonts and things, it might change. And then resize that. Cool. So now we've got our recipe sitting within our columns as well. All right. Next, you can choose some fonts. So if you double click, or this was a triple click to get all the words selected, or you can click and drag to select. In the top here, you can choose whatever font you would like. If you wanted to filter it by different characteristics, you can. So sans serif, serif, handwritten, scripty ones, whatever you think would look nice. You also want to keep in mind the client. So this is for the Women's Weekly. In the assessment file, there is a little blurb about the brief. Let's go back to that. So the scenario here. So it's about creating a spread for the Women's Weekly. So you wouldn't want to do anything that's too childish, or like you want to think about the demographic of who would be reading this and what would be visually appealing to them. So this isn't for kids. This is most likely for surprise, surprise women, or people who enjoy cooking in particular. So think about what that kind of person is like. Okay, I'm also going to make this bigger. My kitty cat has just come and sat right next to me. So if you hear her in the mic, I'm sorry. Oh, she's moved it. Okay. And then same for our body copy. So Command A will select all. I'm just going to select. So this, because I had a filter on here, it's still showing that. So you can clear your filter. I want a sans serif font. Let's go with Avenir. And this has a lot of options here as well. I'm going to stick with book. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is set up the way I would like these paragraphs to look, and then we'll create a paragraph style. So again, Command A to select all, and see how these are all kind of, there's no spaces, they're all sitting up against each other. Go into paragraph. This one here is the space after. If you roll over, it says space after. There's also different options here, but I'm going to use this one. Put that up to 3 mil. So let me undo this. Generally, what people will do is just hit return where they want a space. Right there. Yeah. And that's okay. That's creating space, but it's also creating a space that's equal to whatever the font size is here. Whereas I want to be more particular about it, and also having extra spaces like this is a bit amateurish. space after is like the proper designer way to do it. And then take that return out of there. And then you can fiddle with this however you like. So because we're using placeholder text, you can kind of play around with it, because the reason you would use placeholder text, generally it's when whoever's giving you the job hasn't figured out the exact copy yet, or they're still finalizing the copy, or they'll be like, yes, there's going to be some words here, we just don't know what they are yet. So you can use placeholder text to be like a mock-up to give an idea of what it would look like, and then you can work based on that, and then when they give you the copy you would adjust it to suit. Or even when you're just creating your own mock-ups, sometimes it's nice to be like, I just need some words. It's a good idea to use placeholder text and not grab some copy from somewhere else, because you want it to look like it's gobbledygook. You want it to look like, oh, we've got to put some proper words in here. If you put something you found online or another one of their articles, for example, it will look like it's the real copy, whereas this is very obviously not the correct copy, and so you'll know, like, got to put the actual words in here. Okay, I'm just going to fiddle with this. It's okay for this one to have overset text, because it's all just placeholder text. I kind of want these to line. See how the bottom lines don't line up? I'm going to fiddle around with this so I can get that to happen. Let's put another little return in here. That'll fix that. So that's just because we've got a different amount of paragraphs. Anyway, fiddle around until you're happy with it, and then once you think it looks good, you can also change the size here. 12 is a bit big. You generally only use 10 points. And this is the leading, which is the space between the lines. So the default is 120% of the font size. But generally you would use a higher leading. So yeah, it puts a little bit of space in between. Don't go crazy with this. I wouldn't go more than that. I'm going to stick to 13. And then see how now I've got this gap. So if you need to fill in any extra space, just go back to type, fill with placeholder, and that will fill up the rest of the text box for you. Again, just fiddling around so I can get the spacing the way that I want it. Another thing is you would never have a line like this sitting at the top of a column. That's a big no-no. And another one here, having one word at the bottom of a paragraph, is a big no-no as well. So I'm just going to adjust these so they do what I want them to. The joy of placeholder text, you can kind of do whatever you want, but obviously if you had real copy, you'd be a bit more limited with that. You can also just copy and paste this to add an extra chunk in. All right, let's stick with that. So now we're going to create a paragraph style. So pop your cursor anywhere. This is all the same. So you don't need to select any of the text. You can just have your cursor sitting in there, although you can select it. It doesn't make a difference. Go into the paragraph styles panel over here to the right. And we're going to hit plus. That'll pop in this one. It says paragraph style 1. Double click on that. We're going to rename this one article body because it's the body copy and it's the article. So for our recipe, we'll also have a body paragraph style, but it might have different settings because it's in the recipe and you'll have different settings potentially. So I'm going to separate this into article body. And then in here, it tells you all the settings that are already set here. So we had Avenir, 10-point size, 13-point leading. Don't worry about the character formats, that's a bit advanced. It's got the alignment, it's left aligned. You can change this to center or left justify. Leave it on. Actually, I'm going to put it on left justify. Scroll over so you can see. So the difference with left and left justify is left just has it sitting kind of ragged, is what it's called. And then to have it sit flush up against the right side is when you would go left justify, and then it goes boop and puts it to the right. Something we also need to change is the hyphenation. So we scroll all the way down here, turn the hyphenation off. We don't want any hyphens. There's a few other options here. For the sake of the exercise, I'm going to change the character color to pink so that you can easily see what has the paragraph style applied to it and what doesn't. Again, I've also got the preview box ticked so I can see what it's doing as I'm making changes here. And click OK, and now we've created that paragraph style. So now what I can do is apply that to the paragraphs that I want it to be applied to. So I want it to be applied to everything here. I'm going to hit Command A so that it also selects the overset text. If I just put my cursor here and hit article body, which is the one we just created, it only affects the paragraph that I've got my cursor in. Because it's a paragraph style, it's affecting the whole paragraph. If you know anything about character styles, or if you later on you might make some character styles, that would only affect the characters, so like individual letters or spaces or whatever. So because it's a paragraph style, I just have to have my cursor within the paragraph. Like I say, I want all of these to be affected, so Command A, select all, and then I'm going to tick article body, and now you can see it's applied that paragraph style to all of that. The other great thing you can do is go back into these settings, so double click on article body. I'm going to change that color back to black, and it's changed it here. So it's a much easier way to work when you want to edit things, or if you're applying the same settings to a lot of different text. This is a really handy way to do it. These other ones in here, the normal heading 1, heading 2, they're from the Word file. When we copied and pasted the Word file in, that had paragraph styles attached to it, so that's why they've come in here, but you wouldn't use any of those. You only want to use the ones that you've created. You could also create a paragraph style for the heading. You could go plus, it's popped in that style here, double click, call it heading. I don't need to change anything, so go OK. But for this, I'm not using that anywhere else, but if you were doing multiple spreads and they all had the same kind of heading treatment, then yes, you would definitely want to have a heading paragraph style. Right, I'm going to go over to these recipes and do a similar thing. So I'm going to start by just using the article body paragraph style because I want it to be similar, but I'm going to change it. So for this one, I'm not going to have it on justified. I just want it on left. And you can see when you change, like when you apply a paragraph style and then change the text, it comes up with this plus sign. So it's saying, yeah, you've got this paragraph style applied plus something else, plus you've changed it, plus some different settings. So if you right click, you can apply it again or reset it, or sometimes you need to choose the clear overrides. That's what that means, like you've overwritten these settings, so clear overrides. For this, I want it to be left justify, and then I'm going to create a new style. So click on that, double click, I'm going to call this one recipe body. Now when you create a new style and you already had a previous style applied, see here it says based on article body. That's meaning that if I make changes to the article body, some of those changes will come through to this paragraph style as well, which if you want them to be completely separate, just select no paragraph style. But what it means is, I'm just going to hit OK. Say I decide, okay, I actually just want everything to be a different font. So rather than go into article body and change it, and then recipe body and change it, and potentially a couple other paragraph styles, like we'll do a separate one for the method, and changing them all, what you can do is, because it's this recipe one is based on this one, I change the article, let's just change it to, excuse me, I'm going to change it to something really obvious. so that you can see what happens. Let's go with Beavers, even though it's not a suitable body copy font. But I just want you to see that also changed the recipe body font. Even though I just changed this article body paragraph style, because it's the recipe one's based on that, they both changed, which can be good or bad depending on what you want it to do. So sometimes you'll change and go, what? How come that changed? And it's because if you go into here, it says based on article body. But sometimes that's handy if you suddenly change, like, oh, I just want to change the font, or the client has said, oh, actually we can't use that font, we need to use something else. Then it will change everything for you at once. Yeah, just be aware of that. I'm just going to undo this. That brings up another point. Be really mindful about the fonts that you're choosing. You want to use something that's suitable for body copy. So you wouldn't use like Beavers I just chose. It was all caps. It's more of a heading font. Same with like this kind of scripty font. You wouldn't use that for body copy. There are lots of different articles and things you can look up about font pairing or typesetting rules and choosing fonts. But yes, make sure you're choosing fonts that are relevant and look good. Okay, next I'm going to select this heading. I want it to be, let's make it the same as that heading font, which I think was this one. Let me just double check. Yes, it is. Okay. But I'm going to make it a bit bigger. And then same thing, plus, double click. Recipe title is what I'm going to call this one. It's not based on anything because I created it fresh. And there we go. So do the same thing for the rest. You can see here, like this is bumping into here. So for the recipe title one, I'll add an indent, sorry, a space after about 4 mil, just to get that bumping away. I'm going to take this return out. Actually, we should also turn out our hidden characters. So going to type, down the bottom, show hidden characters. This will show all the little things that are happening within your type. They will not print. It just lets you see what's going on where. So if I just undo what I did. So I knew there was a return in here because I could just tell. But this shows you, yes, there's a return. So I'm going to get rid of that because like I was saying before, we're real designers. We don't use things like that. And then we're going to create a little subheading for the recipe. So I'm going to choose recipe body, and then I'm going to change it to bold up here, black. And I don't want to have that space after this big gap. I don't want to have that. So I'm going to go into paragraph, turn that off, and then paragraph styles again, plus find where it's put paragraph style 1. I'm going to call this recipe, subhead, as in subheading, and it's linked to the recipe body. So if you didn't want it to be, you can change that to no paragraph. This one, I'm going to put recipe body. Okay, you can see here it's got all this space because the recipe body has space after. I'm actually going to turn that off so I don't have any space. But you can see now, because we took that return out, it's bumped up this right next to this top little blurb. So what we can also do is make space before. So in the subhead, go into index and spacing, I'm going to put space before. And that means I'm just putting a bit of space above that line. So for this situation, I want space before. In body copy and other sections, you might want a space after. And then for this word method, I want the same thing, recipe subhead. So click on that, it will apply it. all the rest of this I'm going to put recipe body, and then we're going to change this as well. So you can also rearrange these. If you click and drag, you can reorder them. So I want all the recipe ones to kind of be together. So for the method part of it, because we've got these dot points, like the step 1, step 2, we want to have a bit of space between these two paragraphs, as well as lining up the body like away from this edge. So like for dot points, that's what you would usually do, or bullet points. So let's select all this. I'm just going to create a new paragraph style straight away. Before I was like changing it first and then creating a new style. You can also just create the new style and then edit it. So I'm going to call this recipe method. And then in here, we're going to do some more little space and indents adjustments. So we're going to put a little space after. Probably just 1 or 2 would be enough. Maybe 1. And then the indent section, see how that's shifting it over to the left? We want it to do that, but then we want the first line to go back. So left indent, I'm going to put on 4, we'll just see how it looks. And then the first line indent, because I want to go back to where it was, we're going to go negative. We've gone too much. See how this doesn't quite line up? Let's try 3. Now, depending which order you do this, it'll come up with this little error message is saying the indent can't extend outside the text frame. So what we need to do is change this first line indent first, and then this one. And you see now it's happy. So you can be as fiddly with this as you like. You can put in 3.5 and then minus 3.5. Like just, it doesn't quite. 3 was probably pretty good for this. Oops. Cool, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to click OK. And now we've got that paragraph lining up, indented from our 1 and 2. Okay, so I'm going to apply all those to the second one. So you can just click in there, recipe title, put my cursor in here, recipe body. This is the recipe subhead. You can get rid of this extra return because we've put nice spacing in. Select all of these lines because they're individual. You can tell from this backwards P means a paragraph or like a return break. You have to select all lines to apply the paragraph style. If you just did 1 line, it would just do that 1. Subhead. And then the rest of this is going to be method. So you can see how it's such a great way to keep things consistent and also a lot easier. All you do is like select this, click a button. Oh, just realized I spelled wrong. And it's done all the work for you. You can rename these if you like. I'm just going to fix that typo. Cool, so that's paragraph styles. Really cool stuff. Let's get into images. So in our resources folder, we've got our pasta images. There's a few different folders here. We've got dried pasta, other pasta pics, and then the ones from the Women's Weekly. So these ones were images that were linked to the recipe. Oh, it's not going to show me a preview. I am using an older version of Adobe which doesn't like WebP images, but anything beyond 2023, you'll be fine. So if I try to pop this in here, it just won't do it. But these are images of the dishes, so the carbonara, the pesto pasta, and the bolognese. So if you would like to use one of those alongside your recipe, probably use one that matches the recipe. So for the pasta, so the pesto pasta, use the pesto pasta. The pesto pasta image, or if you've got the bolognese recipe, use the bolognese image. You don't want to mix them up. That will be a bit confusing, and your client won't be too happy with that. So let's pop in. I'll do it the proper way. You know, before I said I like to duplicate. Obviously, I didn't do that this time. I just dragged them in, but it means I've got some space here to put some photos, which is great. So I'm going to hit the space bar so I can see a preview of these. You could just pop them all into here, but it might be a bit overwhelming. There's a few different images. I'm going to use this one. Okay, so if you've got your Finder window sitting above InDesign, you can click and drag this over, and it gives you this preview to place it in. If you click and let go, it places at 100%. These are pretty big images, so it's just taken over my whole document. So instead of doing that, Command Z, click and drag, and you can choose the size. All right. Another way to place files in or import files, go to File, so Images. Where am I going? Place. The shortcut is Command D. If you hit the space bar here, it also gives you a little preview, which is cool. I think we can use these two. So you can use the Shift key to select multiples. Open, click and drag. I'm going to put these ones over to the side. Click and drag. And then whatever images you wanted to use, just pop them in. You can also create layers. I haven't done it. We talked about it in the last exercise. So if you want to have a separate layer for images, you can definitely organize it this way. And then this one would be text. I'm going to select all the images, and then if you click and drag the little box up, it'll pop it on that layer now. And that's just so you can easily lock or unlock things or turn them on and off when you're working on your file. This one I'm going to rotate, so right click, transform, rotate this way, and then resize this image, remembering to hit Command and Shift on your keyboard, then click and drag will resize the image as well as the frame. If I don't hold down any keyboard shortcuts and then I try to expand this out, it's just resizing the frame. And I want it to resize the image or the content as well. Make sure you're extending any images that you want to go to the edge of the page, take them out to the bleed line as well. Or you could just have these, let me get my keyboard shortcut sorted. You could just have it go to the margin if you wanted. Something like that. If you hit the W, it gives you print preview, gets rid of all the little guidelines, and then Command 0 to see the whole page in view. Command Option 0, oh no, Command Shift 0, there's another one. Oh no, what's Option? Command Option 0 puts the spread in the center. Okay, so pop images in wherever you would like. Could also bring, so I am going to size this up a bit, get it out of the way. Oh, another thing I should mention with the paragraph styles, if you have a text box selected like this, you just tick on it with your arrow and then you click one of the paragraph styles, and then you choose title, so it's really obvious. It applies that paragraph style to the whole text box. So be really careful with that. You want to make sure when you're, even if you're just editing these, don't have anything selected. Just click off to the side somewhere and then double click on here to edit it, because if you've got a text box selected and then click on it, it will, you can't quite see it, but it's just applied it there. You can hit cancel and undo. So be really careful with that. Okay, so I've got my image popped in. A reminder that you can use the object fitting section to fit the frame, fit the content, center the content, all that jazz. We're also going to talk about text wrapping. So I'm just going to use this image as an example and drag it over here. So if you wanted to have an image amongst the text but didn't want, like obviously you want to be able to read all the text, so at the moment it's covering it up, we can add a text wrap and it will bump the text around the image. So we need to open up that window or that panel, go to Window, then Text Wrap, and that'll open this little panel up. You can drag it into any of these if you wanted, or you can just leave it hanging out here, however you like to organize your panels. And in the top, there's a few different options for how this works. So the second one is going to wrap around the bounding box, so click on that. And you can see here the text is now sitting around the image. It's right up against the image, so what we're going to do is add a bit of a buffer. So offset. This shows the four sides of the bounding box. They're chained, like they're linked, so that when I change one, they all change. I'm going to bump that out about 3 mil, and that gives us some space around this image. All right. If you make this a shape, so if you go into Object, Convert Shape, say you want to make it a circle, make it a ellipse, which has got like curvy edges. See how the text is still going to the bounding box? It's not coming into the circle, the ellipse. This next one here, wrap around object shape. It's gonna do it. Ooh, spinning wheel. Okay, that goes to the shape. The default here is it tries to get fancy. See these like little anchor points? Oh, didn't mean on that. These little anchor points that it's put in here, that's because of this contour options, select subject. Just change it to bounding box. It's trying to like look at things in the image, like, oh, I can make it go around the bowl or whatever. And sometimes that's cool, that's what you would want it to do. In this case, I'm like, no, just go to the frame. So I've chosen bounding box. If you had a deep edged image, like you've taken the background out of an image and then popped it in, if you do bounding box, it'll go to the edge of the frame. But if you want it to go to like the edges or clipping, try those, and that should go to your clipped image, like without the background affecting it. I'm going to offset this again so we get a nice little space between. There's a couple of options here. So jump object, jump to next column. I'll show you over here what they do. But just to show you, I'm going to hit W, how this works. So anywhere I move this image, the text will go around it. I mean, that looks funky. But yeah, see how that works. And the other reason that this is looking good on this side, so you can see here, like it looks like an oval, the text is going to an oval shape, is because we've got this on left justify. If I change this to left regular up here, or left ragged, see how the right hand side of this column doesn't follow the curve of the bounding box or the image? It's because it was on left justify that it fits to that. So that's the kind of look you're after. Left justify is the way to go. Okay, I'll show you up here. Taking W off so I can see. So we've got our fettuccine photo here. Oh, perfectly fits the column, how handy, but it's covering up the text. So I'm going to click on jump object. You can do this bounding box thing because it's the width of the column. It will have the same effect. But jump object just means if I had this smaller, I'm trying to do this on a laptop. Trying to hold all the keyboard shortcuts. Okay, there we go. If I had this on object wrap, see how it puts the words either side, but I kind of want the lines to stay whole. So if you say this one, it gives you that space either side of the whole image. And there we go. And then the last one, I think it just jumps to the next column. So any text that's below the image, it says here, jump to next column. There is no next column. It's giving us overset text. But that will be an option if it's suitable for what you're doing. I'm going to extend this out. Anytime you get that little red plus, make sure you're just making your text boxes big enough to fit all the text within it. Okay, cool. So we've got text in, we've got images in, we've talked about text wrap. If you want to use the rectangle tool and add background colors, you might want to make another layer for this, or any other kind of elements that you want to draw in. You can draw a big background square. Go into your swatches panel, you can create a new color, or just for the sake of the exercise, I'm going to choose this and bump it down to 20%. I'm going to turn the stroke off so I don't get a black box. Make sure you're extending this out to the bleed line. I'm I'm going to cut this, make a new layer, call it background or BG for short, drag it to the bottom. This is another way to switch things from layers. So I've got it in cut, paste in place, we'll pop it in the same place that I pasted it from. I'm going to move this into here out of the way. And there we go, we've got this like lemony yellow background. So have a play around, continue with that. I'm going to just go back to our assessment file quickly, see if there's anything else I need to... Oh, we didn't do the spell check. Okay, hang on. Did we do everything else? We've got fonts, we've got style sheets. You can also check the images or good resolution. So for that, open it up in Photoshop. Let's just look through this while that opens. We've done the bleed. Oh, I've got to show you the help function. Okay, so we're in Photoshop now. This image is open in Photoshop. Image size will tell you the dimensions and the resolution. So for this one, we use it for like half the page. I'm going to untick this resample, which the width of that was 21 centimeters. Oh, sorry, I do want resample one. And you can tell that comes up to 400 dpi. So yeehaw! You can also, you want it to be above 300. That's what I'm yeehawing about. You can also check it in the links panel. So click on the image you want to check, go to links, scroll down here. When you get to effective PPI, that's what you're looking at. So that means, so it says actual PPI is 72, which usually is like, that's not good for print. But because we've resized this image down, it's at 10%. That puts our resolution at an effective, what did it say, 600 something. 688 PPI. So if you make this image bigger, see how that changes the PPI? So just make sure that's sitting at about 300 or at least 300. And if you want to edit any of these images, you can do that from the links panel. So when you click on anything, it selects it in the links panel. It also tells you here which page it's on, and then the edit original. So mine automatically opens in Photoshop, yours might not. So to make sure it opens in Photoshop, you can right click edit with, and then choose Photoshop. See, mine's the default. And then you can change the brightness or the color or make it black and white. I don't know why you'd make a food photo black and white, but whatever, you can make adjustments to it in Photoshop. And then when you save it in Photoshop, it will re-link here automatically. Okay, the spell check. So type tool, I'm going to spell check these recipes. So Command A to select all. Obviously, I'm not going to spell check the placeholder text because they're not real words. So we're going to edit, spelling, check spelling. And because we've used a selection, it's saying down here selection. You can also choose the whole document. Like I said, I don't want to do the whole document. I just want to do these recipe bits. The whole document will go through this article as well. And then it's going to pop up with different things, different spelling checks. So something you need to change actually first. See the language here, it says English USA. We want it to be on UK, and that's in your preferences. So InDesign, preferences. If you're on a PC, it'll be under edit, but on a Mac it's under InDesign. Go down to dictionary and change this to the one above it, UK. And then go okay. Right, now I'm going to select all, try that again. So edit, spelling, check spelling. I don't know why here it still says UK. You might have to reboot InDesign first for it to apply, but I'll just keep going to show you. So it's saying penne isn't a word, and it's giving suggested corrections here. So if you wanted to change it to penny, for example, you could select that and then hit change, and it would change it in your copy. I don't want it to do that, so I'm going to say ignore or skip. Ignore all will ignore all times it says penne spelt that way within this selection. So ignore all. It's also saying knocking is wrong. I'm going to say nope, that's That's right to me. Ignore all. Parmesan is also correct. It's not doing a very good job so far. Milliliter is saying it's incorrect because it's the USA spelling, so I'm ignoring that. And then it says it's complete. So this is a good way to just check your spelling. So we can do the same thing here. Command A, edit. I'm trying to go really quickly because I realize this video is probably getting super long. Saying carbonara is wrong. Weird. Ignore. Pancetta, ignore. But if you did find something that was incorrect, you could also type in here, like if you want to spell it the other way, bolognese, you could type it in here and then change it, and then see how that just changed in there. I'm going to undo that. But yes, that's how you spell check. And the help menu. So originally, like the other day, I didn't know where the spell check function was. I hadn't used it for a really long time. So if you go into help and then type in spell, when you roll over here, it gives you a big flashing blue arrow where it is. And it goes, there it is. And then it also shows you in the preferences that spelling is also located there. Or all the times it's the word spelling is shown in the menu. So if you're ever looking for a tool, if you want to, like, you forgot where the fitting was for the objects thing, then like the image frame fitting, that's where that is. So help function, super handy, because there's a lot of menus. Like it saves you going through like, where is it? Just type it into here, it'll show you. Great, I think that was everything. Let me quickly go back into that Word file. Yes, so you can add colors, add fonts, try different things, and then we're going to print out a hard copy proof to check in class. So there we go, there's our magazine spread. Obviously you'll finish this off so it looks a bit prettier than this, but I just wanted to show you all the tools and techniques you can use. This is like one of my favorite things to do, is typesetting and publication layout. So if you want to look up publication design or typesetting articles, it will give you like lots of tips. I'm sure I've put a lot of references in the resources on the Moodle as well if you want to check that, but have fun. Hope you go well. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.